Unfortunately, it has been back-to-back years that I was wrong about our Detroit Pistons. Once again, we found ourselves at the bottom of the Eastern Conference, worst record in all of the NBA. Well, tied with the worst record in the NBA with the San Antonio Spurs. I believe we are the only two teams in the league with 2 wins. The Washington Wizards only have 3 wins. They beat us the other night, which was kind of, it was very upsetting, very frustrating watching that game as a fan, but nonetheless, it looks like we're heading towards the NBA draft lottery for another consecutive year, man. And all during this offseason, I just said how this team was going to be a little bit more competitive, and we just kept talking about the play-in. And then if we got lucky, maybe we could have got into the playoffs. And then I just want to look at the first 3 games of this season. The first 3 games of this season, we faced the Miami Heat, we faced the Charlotte Hornets, and then we faced the Chicago Bulls. Now we lose to the Miami Heat on their home court by 1 point. Very competitive game. Cade Cunningham had a really good game. And then we go and play the Charlotte Hornets and the Chicago Bulls. And I know they're not very good teams either, but they have good players and they're competitive each and every night. The Charlotte Hornets and the Chicago Bulls, they give good teams a good fight, I would say about 60-70% of the time. So the Detroit Pistons, they go 2-1 in those games, and after seeing that, I just saw the players, they were very competitive. They were playing defense. They were rebounding very hard. At one point, the Detroit Pistons were the best rebounding team in the league. They were a top 5 defense in the league, and then things were looking very good. And then boom, we get to that 4th game of the season against the Portland Trail Blazers. The Detroit Pistons are up 20 points. Once again, we're looking like a very good team, and then all that stuff seems like it might be true. Us get into the play-in tournament and maybe the play-in, and then maybe the playoffs, and then boom, that 20-point lead is gone, and then now we find ourselves on a 16-game losing streak. And there's a few different reasons I think the Detroit Pistons have been struggling so bad this season, but one reason that I think is off the table, I don't think there's a lack of talent, and I don't think there's a coaching problem. Now, and if there is one thing I have against Monty Williams that he's done as far as starting this season with starting Killian Hayes over Jaden Ivey, I don't really understand that at all. And now it's at a point where they're going back and forth, and we're just trying so many different lineups, and we're actually going to get into that. But I don't think Monty Williams is a bad coach, and I definitely don't think there is a lack of talent on this Detroit Pistons team. I think there are a lot of good young players on this team and a lot of guys that have all-star potential. But we look back over the Detroit Pistons since we drafted Cade Cunningham, and the one problem that this team is continuing to have problems with is health and having a consistent lineup out there. And I think that is so important, especially you look at some of these injuries that the Detroit Pistons have been dealing with. The biggest one I think is Jalen Duren. Jalen Duren has missed 7 games so far this season for the Detroit Pistons, and him being out there on the court is so important for so many reasons. He's a great screen setter. Setting those screens really open things up, and he's that safety blanket for Cade Cunningham. When that trap and that pinch does come off that pick and roll, he has a big man to dump it down to. He has a lob threat. He has a guy that can finish around the rim. And also, Jalen Duren got off to a great start this season, rebounding the basketball and playing very, very great defense. So having him out on the court is very important. And then this right here, we look at the Detroit Pistons, and something we talked about over the last 2 off seasons is that we got to get shooters. We have to get more guys that can space the floor. And then we look at this season. A lot of these injuries have been to the shooters on the team of the Detroit Pistons. We look at Alec Burks, who's missed 7 games. We looked at Isaiah Livers, who's only played 6 games so far this season. Bogdanovich just got his first game of the year against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Joe Harris has only 7 games played so far on this season. Those are all guys that the Detroit Pistons brought in to shoot the ball and help space the floor, and these guys just have not been out there on the court consistently. And what that means for the Detroit Pistons is specifically for a player like Cade Cunningham, who I see getting so much unfair criticism. They saying that he's a turnover machine, he's holding on to the ball for too long. But if you're watching these games, it's just like it's nobody else to give the ball to. Cade Cunningham, he's getting 3, 4, 5 defenders facing him every single play, and then we just haven't had nobody that can step up and be that secondary guy that can create his own shot and create for others and just basically be somebody for the opposing teams to respect. So I think the criticism of Cade Cunningham is so unfair because you will know how truly special he is when you see the way teams are guarding him. Teams are just keying in to stop him and saying make everybody else on the Detroit Pistons beat us. And then I think having those shooters in the lineup would definitely make a difference, because if you have Joe Harris out there on the wing, and you have Bogdanovich, and you have Alec Burks, and you have these guys out there consistently on the wing, you're not going to be able to trap Cade Cunningham. You're not going to be able to trap Jaden Ivey so easily when they're operating in space and in pick and roll situations. So I think that right there is a huge chunk to why the Detroit Pistons have been struggling so much. But then you look at it like 16 straight games, going that whole month without winning a basketball game. It makes you think that maybe something deeper is there. But for me personally, that's what I'm seeing, is just that the personnel out there is very hard to win ball games with when you have a player like Cade Cunningham who operates with the ball in his hands a lot. You got to have the right personnel around him, or it's going to be so easy to make our offense become so stagnant like we've seen over this 16-game stretch. So I think that right there is the biggest problem that the Detroit Pistons has faced so far this season. The inconsistent players and the inconsistent lineups that has been thrown out there. I think it's been really hard for them to find a rhythm and find some continuity. And then another thing that's a little bit concerning, or something that could become more concerning down the line for the Detroit Pistons, is the situation between Jaden Ivey and Monty Williams. And I don't even know if there 100% is a situation between these two guys, but it is something that the media is trying to push. Recently, Jaden Ivey spoke to Yahoo Sports, and they asked him about his about coming off the bench to start this season. And Jaden Ivey said, and I'm paraphrasing here, he basically said that it was a surprise to him and there was no warning of him coming off the bench to begin this season. And I think he handled the question very well, as he said he loves all of his teammates in the locker room, and he said coming off the bench is not a confidence thing for him, and that he's willing to play whatever role the Detroit Pistons ask him to play. And we all know Jaden Ivey should not have been coming off the bench for the Detroit Pistons in the first place, especially when the player that we have starting over him is Killian Hayes. And don't get me wrong, I love the way that Killian Hayes has approached this season. He has told himself if he's not going to be able to be consistent on the offensive side of the ball, he's going to be a pest defensively. And I think Killian Hayes has been a very decent on-ball defender so far this season. But we look at Jaden Ivey, and he has been starting more over these last few games, but you still look at his game log and his minutes are so inconsistent. One night he might play 30 minutes, another night he might just play 16 minutes, and then another night it's just 21 minutes. So his minutes are just all over the place. And we all know with a player like Jaden Ivey, who plays the point guard position, having your role being changed every night, having your usage rating being changed every night, your minutes being so inconsistent, it is not good for your development. And like we already know this, Jaden Ivey has so much potential with the athleticism that he possesses, his ability to get downhill, his ability to control all that athleticism. So he needs a more consistent role, and I think he definitely needs some more consistent minutes. And we look at his numbers so far on the season, just playing 23 minutes per game. With those minutes being all over the place, I think he's still putting up some very decent numbers. He's only averaging 12 points per game, but he's shooting 49% from the field and 34% from the three-point line. And I knew it was going to be something to figure out playing him alongside Cade Cunningham, but I never thought it would have been something that would have moved him to the bench. So that's why it's really a head scratcher to why he received that role to start this season. Maybe he wanted Jaden Ivey to energize the second unit, who knows? But nonetheless, I think that's something that we have to keep our eye on. And I just think that this has been the biggest issue with the Detroit Pistons so far this season. The only thing that has been consistent and Only player that has had a consistent role on our team is I would say Cade Cunningham and Jalen Duren, and everyone else has just been in and out of the lineup. Alec Burks has been in and out of the lineup. Joe Harris, Isaiah Livers has just come back. And you see, I just want to look at Cade Cunningham's first game with Bogdanovich. Makes a huge difference. He shot 8 of 20 from the field, and he only had 1 turnover. And he played a pretty decent game. He had 23 points, 11 assists, 3 of 6 from the 3-point line. So, but having those marksmen out there definitely makes a huge difference. So I'm really hoping. Unfortunately, it seems like the season is over for the Detroit Pistons as far as any type of play-in hope. Any type of playoff hurt, something miraculous would have to happen. But I'm just hoping that we can get a consistent rotation, get these guys healthy, so we can really see what this team is lacking and what they're missing. And I just really hope Jaden Ivey gets more of a consistent role, and I just want his minutes to stay consistent. You know, he should be on the court whether he's playing bad or playing good. You just have to give him a chance to make those mistakes and get better. But nonetheless, that's going to be it for today's video. That was my little rant. Let me know if you guys feel differently about what's going wrong with the Detroit Pistons. Comment down below, leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe for more weekly content. We do this all the time, man, and that's curtains. If you guys like my Detroit Pistons hat, it's all black, but that's curtains.